The French national team has never been more successful than between 1998 and 2006, when Le Bleu won a World Cup, a European Championship, and reached another World Cup final. While players from that era like Zinedine Zidane and Thierry Henry are immortalised as national icons, there will never be such a place in French folklore for Nicolas Anelka, the man who was once touted as the future of French football, but whose ability was overshadowed by a poor attitude that meant he had more clubs than Tiger Woods, and has also overshadowed a very successful career, which in my view makes him the greatest underachiever in football history. Growing up on the outskirts of Paris, Anelka's potential was noted straight away as he was accepted into the famous Clairefontaine Academy, a place where all of the nation's elite talents attend. Anelka was seen as the best attacking prospect out of the stats group in and around his age group, including David Trezeguet and even Thierry Henry, and at the age of just 16, he signed for his hometown team, Paris Saint-Germain, making his debut at the same age. But after just 12 appearances, Anelka would make the first move of his storied career as the newly appointed Arsene Wenger got his compatriot to join him at Arsenal for just £500,000 in February 1997. Despite being just 17 years old, Anelka displayed hints of the problems that would plague his career in his first few months in North London, as he threatened to go back home after making just 4 appearances for the rest of the season. But he would soon get his chance in the second half of the 97-98 season when the club's all-time leading goalscorer Ian Wright suffered a long-term hamstring injury while the Gunners were in a title battle with Manchester United. As we will uncover, Anelka's attitude would turn out to be a shortcoming, but his fearless mindset was exactly what his side needed as the 18-year-old rose to the occasion, getting 12 goal contributions to help them win their first Premier League title. He also played a key part in their FA Cup success that season, scoring the opening goal in their 2-0 victory over Newcastle in the final. It was during that run that Anelka got his first international call-up, making his debut in April 1998, just a few months before France were due to host the World Cup, but he was omitted from the final squad, marking the first blemish on a very murky international career. But he did have the trust of another French manager, as Wenger made Anelka the club's first choice striker, with Wright being sold to West Ham that summer. On paper, Anelka's season justified Wenger's trust. He spearheaded Arsenal's hopes of back-to-back titles, finishing a goal off sharing the Golden Boot, and was that season's PFA Young Player of the Year. That season also provided him with his best match in a French shirt. In a game against England at Wembley, Anelka tore his club teammates Tony Adams and Martin Keown to shreds as he scored both goals in France's 2-0 victory. The performance was so good that French captain Didier Deschamps said that the World Cup winners had found their Ronaldo. But off the pitch there were problems. Anelka simply could not keep his mouth shut in front of journalists. That season, he labelled London as boring. He stated that he would probably not renew his contract with Arsenal, and even accused Dutch teammates Mark Overmars and Dennis Bergkamp of not passing to him on purpose. These quotes and Anelka's subdued personality on the pitch caused the British media to label him as Le Sulk. Another problem were his advisors. Anelka trusted his brother Claude to be his agent, a man who once bought Scottish side Raith Rovers just so he could manage them, despite having no previous football management experience. The reason why he could possibly afford to buy a club was because he always wanted his brother to move, so he could pocket some of the large signing-on fee in the transfer. In this case, Claude was desperate to get his brother to move to the then wealthy Lazio. In Anelka's words, the media were the ones that forced him out of Arsenal, so he instead joined one of the most ruthlessly scrutinised clubs in the world, Real Madrid. And well, it went exactly how you'd expect. After becoming the then second most expensive transfer of all time, Anelka didn't score in his first 5 months as a Los Blancos player, and the media ripped into him. There was also a small match with his teammates instantly not liking him, as it was clear that he was signed to replace the popular Fernando Morientes. This, plus a media pile-on for his poor start, resulted in the mother of all meltdowns. Anelka lost his head and went on an epic rant at training, arguing with manager Vicente Del Bosque and accusing his teammates of treating him like a dog. This outburst resulted in a 45-day suspension. But once the suspension ended, Anelka actually played a big part in the club's 8th Champions League title, scoring 2 goals in the semi-final tie against Bayern Munich, and started the subsequent final as Madrid won 3-0 against Valencia. That summer, he was also part of France's triumph at Euro 2000, but only played a bit-part role and didn't get off the bench in the final, as the players he was deemed better than as a youngster, Thierry Henry and David Trezeguet, won the Man of the Match award and scored the winning goal in the final. It was just a few weeks after that Euros win that Anelka had a homecoming back to PSG. In what normally occurs for aging players who had spent the prime of their careers away from the club, Anelka came back to Paris as a 21-year-old, desperate to revitalise his career. He was immediately awarded the captaincy and started brilliantly, scoring 10 goals by the end of October. But just as it looked like Anelka's career was back on track, frequent clashes with new boss Luis Fernandez meant he was in and out of the team, only scoring 8 goals in the next 12 months. Desperate to escape a club once more, Anelka found himself back at the place where he was at his best, England, joining Liverpool in December 2001 on a loan deal till the end of the season. The Frenchman formed a brilliant partnership with Michael Owen as they helped the Reds finish second in the league. However, Liverpool didn't exercise the option to sign Anelka permanently, as they decided to sign El Hadji Diouf instead, so he moved to the recently promoted Manchester City for a then club record £13 million fee. Despite scoring 24 goals in all competitions in his second season for a side that finished 16th, stories were still coming out about his poor attitude. Teammates complained about him never speaking to them, and he even once held up the team bus for an away trip as he was too busy shopping, and when he eventually arrived, he didn't even apologise. This meant that when City had to sell due to their financial situation in January 2005, no club was after the 25-year-old, so when he should have been entering the prime of his career, he moved to Fenerbahce, a destination synonymous with players who were near the end of their playing days. Those 18 months in Istanbul brought him a league title, but were not enough for him to get into France's World Cup squad in 2006, even when Djibril Cissé had to pull out because of an injury. That time in Turkey did little to help Anelka's reputation, and with Claude, after some more agent commission, he moved to Bolton Wanderers. When asked why he moved to Reebok, he said it was to get back to Paris faster than if he were in Istanbul, in another display of his elite mentality. But despite the character issues, Anelka's talent was in full display. His 16 goal contributions in the 06-07 season helped the Trotters get to UEFA Cup place, and Anelka back in the France squad, and his scintillating start to the following campaign saw him earn an £18 million move to Chelsea in January 2008. But 2 goals for the remainder of the season and the deciding miss in the Champions League final shootout meant Anelka had one of the lowest points of his career. Couple that were making little impact when France went out of the group stages of that summer's Euros, and with what we know about his career beforehand, and it would be easy to presume that Anelka would be more than willing to move on from West London. But instead, he bounced back with the most prolific season of his career, winning the Premier League Golden Boot over the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, Cristiano Ronaldo. The impressive display of mental strength left fans questioning where this has been throughout his entire career, as he carried on his fine form the following season when Chelsea won the League and Cup double, the second of Anelka's career. That summer, he was finally selected to play in his first World Cup, but he only lasted a game and a half. At half-time in France's second group game against Mexico, Anelka had a bit of falling out with French coach Raymond Domenech and was booted out of the squad. In a staunch defence of Anelka, the remaining squad members held a mutiny by refusing to train in one of the most bizarre moments in World Cup history. The man, who was once deemed his country's version of Ronaldo, ended his international career with just 14 goals from 69 caps, while the strikers around his age group would be remembered for glory on the international stage. Anelka would be remembered for architecting one of the most embarrassing moments in the national team's history. He spent another 18 months at Chelsea and in true Anelka fashion clashed with manager Andre Villas-Boas and was banned from training with the first team in November 2011. He was then on the move to China, joining Shanghai Shenhua in January 2012, but after just 3 goals in 22 appearances, he then had an obscure loan spell to Juventus in January 2013, where he only managed to play in 4 games because of a calf injury. After being released from his contract in China, Anelka had few suitors, so he did what he had done throughout his career when in that position, and joined a mid-table Premier League side, this time West Brom. And Anelka's farewell tour to England featured all his classic tricks, such as arguing with the manager, minimal effort in training, and leaving the club on bad terms, this time for doing a celebration associated with anti-Semitism. Anelka's final move was to India, playing 13 games across 2 seasons for Mumbai City, with a quiet retirement in November 2015, bringing an end to a chaotic career. After winning a Champions League, a European Championship, 4 league titles, 3 FA Cups and a Premier League Golden Boot, Anelka still had an incredibly successful career, playing for some of the world's biggest clubs, even if it weren't during the prime of his career. The problem is, Anelka had the talent to be the best striker of his generation, but his career overview sounds more like a reality TV series.